Hello and welcome to Strange Stories. It's great to have you here. We are all about sharing stories of near-death experiences from around the world in the hopes of bringing some light and inspiration to your day. Our daily videos offer a glimpse into what lies beyond this life, and we believe that they can help us all appreciate the gift of life a little bit more. If you enjoy our content, please consider liking, subscribing, and hitting the notification bell to stay up to date on all of our latest videos. Your support means the world to us and helps us continue to grow. And to our returning viewers, welcome back. We're thrilled to have you with us again. So go ahead, grab a cozy blanket, get comfy, and join us for today's incredible near-death experience story. Hello, my name is Ann Bayford. I'm now in my 50s. As a teenager, I was struggling with life and had many low points. I remember thinking there must be more to life, and I kept thinking there must be more to life. As I grew older and into my 30s, I had my children, my daughter, who was 7 at the time of the first accident and near-death experience, and my son, who was 5. And I recall being in a really bad, dysfunctional relationship with my partner. I was extremely unhappy, despite the fact that I enjoyed my job. And once again, I had that fleeting thought that there must be more to life. There must be more to life than just paying bills and running the rat race. I was extremely dissatisfied. And I remember taking them to school when they were 5 and 7 years old. I remember being in such a rush to catch the train, as we all are, trying to get to work on time. I almost didn't say goodbye to them. I usually gave them a big hug and a kiss on the cheek, but I was in a hurry that day. I almost pulled away and didn't kiss them, but I remember something in me telling me that I had to kiss them. And there was a part of me that wondered if this was the last time you saw them, but I had no idea I was going to have the accident. And I just sort of shut myself down to being intuitive at the time. I had empathic abilities. Everyone's emotions and feelings were constantly soaked in, leaving them feeling overloaded. And I was a counselor at the time, and I've always been interested in helping people. That's how it felt. That was really my life's mission. But there was always something else I needed to learn, or something else I needed to accomplish in my life. So on the day of the accident, I kissed the kids goodbye and dashed to work, where I found my office. As a counselor, I was seeing clients there and also working on a project in London. And I recall having to post a letter informing one of the clients that she could receive additional assistance from social services at the time. And as I looked at the clock, it was 2 o'clock, and I was starting to wind down because I knew I had to hurry to get the kids. And I was trying to get everything organized in my office while telling people I had to leave soon or I'd miss my train. This letter must be posted. I need to return to the children's school to pick them up. And it had to be around 2:15 or 2:20 or something. And as I walked out of the office, I held the letter from my client in my hand. And there was a pedestrian crossing there on a busy main road in London. And I remember thinking to myself, do I rush to catch the train, or do I cross the road, taking me out of my way to post the letter? I was looking for a newspaper, and it's all happening in my head the entire time. I couldn't think of anything else, but I need to get the kids. I have to go get the kids. I have to go get them. I'm not going to be late, just like a busy mother juggling everything all the time. The pedestrian crossing button was pressed, causing the traffic to stop. That button was pressed, I recall. And I noticed 4 or 5 people crossing the street at the same time as me. They'd also completed the first section of the pedestrian crossing. We all crossed at the same time, and I kept thinking in my head, I've got to help and get the kids. Should I go get the letter or post it? Should I go to the post office or the store? And it would have required me to change angles. Logic dictates that it would have been better to go straight across the road at that time. But then something strange happened. Something made me reconsider. I decided to make a slight turn to change direction. And it's kind of like it saved my life, so I got to the middle of the island's road and something occurred to me. I heard my grandmother's voice. My grandmother died when I was 15 years old. She looked after me. I also heard a voice, and I thought to myself, wow, this is really strange. I was thinking very quickly. My thoughts were racing at breakneck speed, and I was in the center of the island, and I recall hearing a voice say, everything will be fine. But I couldn't figure out why she was reassuring me when nothing was going on. It was a March morning or afternoon, and it was a little chilly, and nothing was going on. I was perfectly safe. I had no idea what was going on. Why was she communicating with me? Or was it her? And I had no idea what was going on. Because I knew it was her voice, but she's no longer alive. She's been passed over. I was completely perplexed. And while this was going on, I was thinking about which direction I should go. And I was thinking, okay, she told me. Go get the newspaper, her voice said to me, which makes no sense because it would have been better if I had posted the letter. And because I was heading in one direction, but that changed. I was completely unaware of the other people around me at the time. I'd seen all the cars stop because I'd looked both ways when I was crossing the street. Every car came to a halt. It was a green man who said the road was safe to cross. I also recall putting my foot down. That was the end of it. I was very warm. It was a very bright light. However, I could see with my eyes. It wasn't causing any discomfort, but I was very hot, and I felt safe and protected. What was happening physically when I put my foot down? That car on the inside of the lane had apparently driven through the red stop sign and straight through me at 40 miles per hour. And where I reversed my physical direction, walking straight across the street to post the letter. If I had walked straight across, the police said my body would have gone through the windshield. My head would have been severed, and there would have been no turning back. So when I got the nudge, intuitive nudge, or heard my Nan changing direction, and my entire body weight went on my right foot, that's what happened. The car hit me on the left side of my body, spinning me around. Physically, when the car collided with the van, well, it was a van. When the van hit me, it was traveling at 40 miles per hour. It smacked into my body, and I sort of flew up into the air, bounced, and landed hard, and fell to the ground on my right side. It cracked my pelvis and severed my stomach muscle because the bone had acted like a knife inside my trunk, on my body, where I'd fallen awkwardly. My ribs on my left side had been broken, and they'd broken on my right side. And as the impact landed on my left side of my body, my foot landed on the ground, twisting and ripping my ankle from the joint. I had 7 breaks in my foot and had to have intensive, numerous operations to repair it. And it took me about 4 years after the accident to regain my ability to walk. I spent 2 years in a wheelchair and another 2 years walking with a walking stick. However, the impact of the van hitting me caused so much trauma in my body that my kidneys were bleeding internally. They discovered that my spleen had been damaged. Because of the impact, my gallbladder and many of my internal organs were damaged, and it was simply too much. My heart had stopped, though it was still beating. I didn't realize any of this because I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel like I belonged there. I had no idea this was going on. I had no idea what was going on. I had the impression that there was an essence of myself somewhere else, as if my soul was elsewhere. I was having this out-of-body experience 1 minute and looking down on this human on the road the next. That was because the body had been twisted, which I could see down there. I had no idea that was me, and it wasn't until my partner came walking down the road that I realized it was me. He'd been told I'd been in an accident, and he was walking quickly, and once again, I recognized him from my out-of-body experience as I looked down at the situation. I could see a group of people crossing the road at the same time as me, but I had no idea it was me. And I saw a lot of shopkeepers fleeing the stores and the post office, and people were yelling. The screams were audible to me. Everyone's emotions were palpable to me. I noticed an uncle among them as I looked at their faces, and I wondered, why is he so upset? Why is he depressed? What brings him here? And as I mentioned, my partner was walking down the street with his mother, heading towards me. And it wasn't until he put his hand on my head and started thinking about me that I could feel it in my body. Then I realized who it was. I was there, but I had no idea it was me at first, because I had no pain, nothing at all. And as I felt his hand on my head, I realized he was thinking about our children. Then I realized it had to be me, but I still didn't feel connected to my body. Then I found myself in this lorry driver's cab at the crossing because he was stuck in traffic. I could hear the radio and him moaning on the phone to his boss. I'm stuck in traffic, sort of. Someone has been knocked down. There will also be an air ambulance. It was broadcast on the radio. They were claiming that a helicopter would be dispatched to pick up. There was an accident, a traffic accident. So I could hear it all over again. I had no idea it was for me. Now, during all of this, I remember feeling like I was in a warm, safe environment. It was a very light room with no four walls. It was just that what I was showing reminded me of the Hall of Souls. I didn't understand the Hall of Souls, but I'm led to believe it's similar to the Akashic, where the Akashic records are kept. All soul blueprints from all souls on earth are kept. But when I was there, it was like a semicircle of bookshelves, almost like a library. It felt strange, as if I were being shown information. There was some kind of being there. It was difficult to describe, but it was a cloak. They wore a cloak. I had the impression that I had returned home. It was a strange sensation, like I was at home. They took out some scrolls while I was there, scrolls and tubes that are long. I recall them rolling them out, and I was shown lines that looked like they were drawn by an architect. But it wasn't the case. It was exactly like my life. My life path was being revealed to me. I was shown that I had been here before. I had the impression that everything was being told to me while I was there. And when I did return, I brought all of this knowledge with me. I recall seeing this book as well. It opened like a book. It was almost as if things came to life when they opened the book. There were images that came to life as a result of it. They were also displaying connections and other information to me. It was almost as if I were being told there was a reason and a purpose for everyone's presence here, and it appears that the information provided to me is that I did not realize as much at this time. Because it is genuine and awakening, but it's as if I was told I was here to help others, not just as a counselor, but also to help them connect, develop their skills, and so on. But it felt like a real semicircle of bookshelves, books, scrolls, and jars. And it felt like it was a place where your soul went, where you decide if you finished your job, if you're going to return, or if you've lived your entire life. What were you still looking for? I had the impression that my name was present. Other beings existed, and I had no idea who they were at the time. I wasn't sure what you meant. I just knew this was a safe place where I was just there to get a download of information telling me everything was fine, and that it wasn't the right time for me to leave. I was never scared, but a part of me worried about what would happen to my son and daughter. I was wondering what would happen to Nathan and Rebecca. But before I could finish my sentence, they jumped in and said, "Everything will be fine." There's a significant difference in time. I felt like I'd been on the other side for a long time, but I was told it was only about 6 minutes. During the accident, my human self's heart physically stopped beating. But I just remember feeling like it had been a long time. And I remember feeling like I didn't want to return to Earth, which took me a long time to get over. I loved my children, but on a soul level, I didn't want to return to Earth because I was so unhappy, and because I felt at ease. And I remember only being there in that location, this overwhelming warmth and homely feeling, as well as love. So much love for me. And I didn't feel separated because I felt so connected to everything around me. On Earth, I felt very disconnected from everything. And my mind was constantly perplexed by the relationship I was in and my situation, but there I felt whole. It felt like a real wake-up call to tell me that my job was not finished. I have to go back. I must return. Then, when the ambulance arrived, they cut all my clothes, my coat, and parts of my clothing off because they needed to get to my chest. But I recall that they were constantly speaking to me. I didn't respond or repeat because I wasn't there. However, they were conversing with me and attempting to reassure my physical self that we were on the road. And I remember jumping back when they paddled me with electric paddles. But I recall what it was. It felt like I was in a theme park, possibly a water park. And it was a water ride with a slide, and I was flying back. And I remember not wanting to return to where I'd left off. I did not want to leave. I wished I could stay. I felt right at home there. I had the impression that my loved ones were present. I had the impression that all of my information was present. And I remember coming back into my body in excruciating pain as I was whizzing back. I recall feeling pain in my leg and foot, And I recall them putting a mask on my face. It was a mixture of gas, air, and something else. And I was in a lot of pain. When I returned to my physical body, I kept remembering that there was something I needed to remember. I needed to recall something. But I couldn't remember it because I was in so much physical pain. I remember them putting me in the ambulance, and I had a lot of out-of-body experiences on the way. I had left my body. I noticed the numbers on the top of the ambulance as it drove through London. And then, when I was in a car accident and ended up in the hospital, there were 3 teams working on my physical body. I was out of my body and looking down at my body once more. And I remember seeing that the crash team had cut my clothes off, that they were x-raying me, that they were doing everything. But I also sensed and felt that everyone in that room was concerned about whether I would live or die, because I was hemorrhaging internally because of the severity of my breakages in my body. But where I was, I felt as if I were with my grandmother. She was by my side and caring for me even while I was in the hospital. She was checking to see if I was all right. I truly believe that when we die, we are never alone. I know you're never alone when you die. On the other side, there is always a loved one. And I can attest to that based on my own experiences. Later, after they had completed all of the necessary medical procedures, I was placed in intensive care and remained there for a few days. I recall feeling as if my grandmother was holding my hand. When I returned, the nurse informed me that your hand was doing this, and I asked, "Where is my grandmother?" And when I awoke, I wondered, "Where is my Nan?" And she stated, "There is no one here except me." And she said that as a nurse, she had seen similar things happen to many patients who had nearly died or had died, but returned over the years. That was it for me. It felt like a real wake-up call. It was like, it'll be fine. Life was bad. I was unhappy, but I was here for a reason. I wasn't just here to complete this task. I was here to assist others, to see them through, and to accompany them on their journey. That was the first significant wake-up call. And, as I previously stated, it took me 4 years to learn to re-walk. I was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. That is what I was diagnosed with. I was unable to leave my house. It was a difficult time and a difficult moment. But as the post-traumatic stress disorder set in, I had the impression that I had guardian angels by my side. Someone was by my side the entire time I was recovering. And then, as I said, I went on with my life, still feeling guilty because I loved my children. I adore them, and they are now 28 and 26 years old. But I didn't want to be there at the time. I wished I could be somewhere else. I just felt a strong desire to return to where I was. And I kept feeling bad about myself for feeling that way. And I kept having the feeling that there was information I needed to remember but had forgotten. When I returned, it was as if I had amnesia. And it was vexing. I was trying to recall it. So, as a result of that journey, I began to investigate further, looking into psychic phenomena. And as a student, I attended the College of Psychic Studies. And I was there for 10, 15 years, fighting some battles, trying to learn, trying to understand what had happened to me, trying to make sense of everything. It no longer had the same meaning for me. I remembered that I had been given additional skill sets. I could hear the spirit, see the spirit, taste the spirit, know the spirit, and work with angels. They seem to have been there for me at every step of my journey, but I haven't heard them. It's as if I turned them off. I could hear and see spirits even as a child. Then I discovered that it was kept a big secret on my mother's side. After my near-death experience, it has now tuned me up to full volume. As a result, communication is simple. And then, well, now I can see. I can now access various parts of the world via remote viewing. Because I have that out-of-body experience, I work with various governments or organizations to check in on where people and resources are located around the world. I've had quite a few of them, and I had a brain bleed and a stroke in February, and I'm fine. And doctors are astounded that if you've had a mini stroke, you shouldn't be walking or talking. And I couldn't talk for a couple of weeks, 14 weeks, but every time, it's the physical self. When I asked my guides what was going on, they said they needed to rejangle, reconfigure some circuitry in my brain, and just a strength for me in terms of the work that I'm going to do even more stuff. And it was only to slow me down, to get me out of there so I could process it and my body could heal. But the connection has altered my entire life.